Spent 10 years repping actors, and here's what I wish they knew. You might think that talent is everything in acting, but it's not. There's way more that goes into it, and honestly, there's less talented actors that are working actors than some of the most talented actors that I've seen that are not really working. So there's a lot more that goes into it than just talent. And I've seen actors that have booked series regulars on Apple TV, Amazon, Netflix that I've repped. And I've seen actors that, that quit after a couple of years because they weren't seeing progress. I've also seen actors that came in with a plan thinking that they were going to make it in 1 year. I mean, that didn't happen. They also quit. So I think before we get to, some of the points, I think it is important to know and for me to say that acting is not the type of thing where you can just give yourself 1 year and if you make it or not, then you make a decision based on that. It's something that in general takes many years, always exceptions, but I would say you can't just give yourself a year. If you're going to do this, make sure this is what you want to do and make sure that you want to commit a long time to it. Number one, there are no rules, and so stop waiting for permission. You don't need it. I think this is really important to remember because acting is not a traditional industry or a traditional career path. It's not like a white collar job where it's like, okay, entry level, move up, blah, 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 blah. There's not steps like this. You could literally book a series regular job and go from having 2 co-stars to all of a sudden being a full-time actor working and a career taking off. And the opposite can also happen. You can be a series regular actor and then all of a sudden not work for 2-3 years. It's a very strange industry in that way, and I've seen all of that over 10 years. And I think knowing that the rules don't matter in a lot of ways and that you don't need permission for anything and to be bold in what you do, that's important. And I think that honestly that matters for everything. I remember when I started out just in general in business, I was 22, 23, and I was applying for a tennis director job. Sorry, no, a tennis teaching job. That's what I was applying for. I was applying for a tennis teaching job. And at the time, I was 22, 23, didn't really have any work experience at the time. I was doing the interview and the interviewer asked me, he said, "Hey, are you applying for the tennis teacher job or the tennis director job?" I was applying for the tennis teacher job, which is way less pay. But after when he said that, I was like, oh, I'm applying for the tennis director job because I was like, why not? Might as well aim for the biggest one or the highest paid one. And then, after weirdly, it was like a lot of interviews. So I had to do like 5 different interviews. But after 5 interviews, I ended up getting the tennis director job, which at the time, just like a humongous pay increase. And also was more fun to do than the tennis teaching job. So that ended up working out really well. And I tell that story, not to brag or anything. It's really to illustrate that in general, it's better to aim as high as possible and say yes to these as much as possible, and that yes, I can do it, or yes, I can do it, because no one really knows what they're doing anyway. Everyone had to learn anyway. I think that's the biggest thing I've learned in general is like the older you get, the more you realize no one really knows what they're doing and everyone's either just pretending initially or just overconfident or whatever. So I think it's just best to say, yeah, you can do it and believe in it and then just learn as you go as quickly as possible. Trust in your ability to learn. I think confidence to me doesn't come from just being good at something. Yeah, that's obvious. Like obviously you'll get confidence being good at something. I think true confidence comes from trusting your ability to be able to learn anything, to be able to do anything at whatever level you need to do it at, that you can improve and learn. That's confidence to me. That way, even when you're a beginner, you're still confident. So you'll know you'll pick it up. And for actors, that's important to remember because you might think like, oh, I need 4 co-stars or I need 2 guest stars before I can be eligible for a series regular. It's like, no, you don't. Like there's no traditional resume. You can literally be booking your series regular in the 4th auditions in some cases. I had a client that never really worked in America. He had worked in another country, but just for those type of shows, no American shows, so it didn't have a ton of value here. He's a very good actor, but he started out, and I think it was his 4th audition, he ended up booking a series regular on Apple TV. Now, that's super unusual. You know what I mean? That's not normal. Like in general, that's not how it goes. A lot of times it's the opposite. There's a lot of like, get guest stars and trying to get in, and finally maybe you book a series regular. It's really hard, So I'm not trying to put false expectation that that's normal. That's not normal. It's the only time I've seen that in 10 years that it happened so fast. But one thing that he was very confident in himself and his ability. He never felt like the type of person like, oh, I need a co-star, I need this. He was like ready to book a series regular from day one. Not in an arrogant way, maybe just a little bit of arrogance, but like it's more in a way of like, I know I can do this, or I know I can do what they're doing, what anyone's doing. And I think that it needs to be innate. It needs to not be loud. There's also people you meet that are saying these things loudly, and a lot of times they're not actually that confident. So I think that's the big takeaway. Don't believe that you need to earn your place here. Like some people will tell you that, and most people have had different paths. I do feel like acting is one of the few that there's so many different paths and weird paths. There is no one way. So don't feel like you need to earn your place in anything. If you're confident in your acting and your acting ability is good, you're ready, then believe that you're ready. So 2 is that, talent is not enough. I've mentioned that before. But what that also means is you could be the best actor, and if all your other stuff isn't in order, then it's also not going to work. It's also a business. I think a lot of actors and artists in general forget that this is a business. You need everything else to be on point. You can't just leave that alone. And what does that mean for an actor? It means high quality headshots. And more than high quality headshots, in the beginning it also means specific headshots, not just where you look good. Like we have a whole branding PDF that we used to use when I was managing, and all our actors did this, and they would have to do it. It's like a 30-page PDF. I also sell it on my website, very cheap, but we used this for 10 years, and it was the most useful thing because we had actors that I had one actor that was 33 years old. I never really booked anything. I'd been going at it for years though, but I think I'd booked one co-star, but his face wasn't even in it. So it was a very small co-star, and he was a really good actor. It didn't really make sense till I saw his headshots. They were terrible. So he ended up, to his credit, going all in and 180ing from there once he understood it. And he ended up going to 2 different headshot photographers because he wanted to go so all in and get so specific. And he ended up getting the most specific headshots. I'm not talking like, oh, he's wearing a nurse costume or something. That's a little caricature. I'm talking about like literally you could be like, oh, okay, I could see this character in The Walking Dead, or I could see this guy on like this type of Netflix show. Like very specific. Like this is like the bad boy, or this is like the good businessman, or whatever, you know what I mean? So it was very specific, and our PDF is very specific, even with mood music that to play like while you're doing it to get in the right mood. It is still acting in that way. I think that's important. It's not just a photo shoot, it is part of your acting. You are the character, and he really did a great job with that. And he ended up in the next couple of years booking, obviously that first year he ended up booking his first couple of real co-stars. That was a huge win. And then he went on to book recurring guest stars and a bunch of other things and some indie films. So coming from 33, 34 and really no credits to all of a sudden building a career was really impressive. And a lot of it was he already had what it takes. He's a really talented actor, but he didn't have the marketing materials. So you need both. You need everything. And number 3 is, your marketing materials outside of headshots, which is your reel and your social media. The reel should be, obviously your best performances, even if you just have some short films or student films, put those in there. But always think that just leave the strongest in there. If your strongest is literally 30 seconds, 40 seconds, just put that in there. Same if you have nothing, then put a good audition in there. But again, only your strongest. Don't worry about showing as much as possible. That can actually hurt you. Show your strongest and leave it at that. It's always better to do that than to put too much that disqualifies you. Then your social media, it is important. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that always, but it is important. Obviously, the bigger your following, the better, but that's not something you can as much control. So don't worry about the size as much, but do worry about what you're posting. Sometimes they don't even look for your size when they're checking it out of your social media. They're just checking it out to see what type of person you are. And almost every casting director has told me they do look that up. So they look at like what kind of person you are. Are you going to be pleasant to be around on set? Are you posting anything strange or violent or whatever? You know what I mean? They just want to know you're a normal person, or you're a fun person, or a good person to have around on set. Same, like maybe they see something that like you have a skill set. Maybe like you're playing tennis or something that can also help you. Whatever you do, share that. Just share more of you as a full human being. Don't just be sharing acting stuff. Be sharing your full, like things that you are able to do that's fun, or that your skill set you have. That can all help you. But at the end of the day, they really just mainly look to make sure you're a normal person, that you're going to be not a nightmare on set. So that's what you should do for the social media. Number 4, understand the rep relationship. Your partners. Don't just, they're not your employee. You know what I mean? I think sometimes they think, yes, they will do work for you, but you're a partnership. This is not an employer-employee relationship. A lot of times your rep is doing a lot of free work before they make any money. I've had clients where, I repped them for years and almost made no money. Maybe I made $100 over 5 years. And then I've had clients where I make a lot. So it's not proportionate. Ideally, your reps putting equal effort in. Realistically, they will be putting in more effort to the people making them money. Usually you focus more on your top clients, obviously, than you will, the clients that aren't making you anything. But, hopefully they still are spreading out the attention as much as they can. But do remember that you are partners. So it's not just sit back and let your rep do everything and hope that you get work. You're doing your stuff too. You're helping them. You're figuring out how you can help them. You're asking them how you can help them. That is important to know. It can be short films that you're doing, anything that you can do on your end that helps your career, helps them. Same with pitching. Any skills that you learn helps them. So you're trying to work as a partnership towards a common goal. Remember that. And then, otherwise make sure that the relationship is professional. If there's ever a rep that asks something that you feel is not professional, then it's more than likely not professional. Listen to that. Don't excuse things. Don't justify things. Nothing's worth just because you want a career. If there's something strange or something feels off, then that's not right. And you should probably leave that relationship. That shouldn't be your rep. On the flip side, make sure that communication is always respectful. That also just means tone as well in communication, but it also means when you're reaching out. Most of my actors were always good about that. Occasionally I did have actors that would text on 8 a.m. on a Saturday, and it's unless it's an emergency or it's something really important or something, then yeah, that's fine, because most reps are available for, 7 days a week, and you have different times. But don't just be texting about on a Saturday morning, hey, any auditions coming in? It's been slow. Not that type of text. That's the type of communication that drives all reps. So, be respectful of their time. Remember, they are working. I remember hours are usually 7 to 7 a lot of times, and usually you're working more because there's no, just like actors, no official actor hours. I would say official hours. Remember to, so if they usually try to recharge in the weekends. Some do work a little bit in the weekends, but don't abuse that. Be respectful of their time, and remember that they are working hard for you. Same with everything else, with payments and everything. Be professional with that. Don't try to skimp on things, or ooh, they didn't ask me about that, so I guess I won't pay it. Always pay it. You know what I mean? When in doubt, ask them. In general, that's probably the best advice. When in doubt, communicate, ask. In that way, it's best to over communicate so that you're on the same page. You don't want to have mistrust there. Number 5, these are the traits that clients have that really win, that do really well. They're usually great at communication. Best clients I've had have always been really good communicators. And they've honestly always been really respectful. Just they know how hard we're working, and that goes a long way, because same as actors, a lot of times we are doing a lot of work that you don't see a lot of results sometimes, yeah, you get a series reg sometimes, but that is not the majority of your roster. So a lot of the work you're doing, you're not seeing a lot of result. In that way, similar to actors. So, keep that in mind. You're in the same boat. So the best clients that I've had have always been good about that, very team oriented. Another thing I think is important to remember, don't just skip from rep to rep. Yes, there are times when you outgrow a rep. That makes sense. Sometimes you have to make a decision. Sometimes it's not a good fit. That's all good. Don't be a person, though, that just jumps at opportunity to opportunity once you book something. That's a lot of times the people that believed in you initially will also keep believing in you the most. Whereas sometimes you do go to another agency or manager that because you got a bigger role, and I've had this happen, and they go there and in a year they don't book, and all of a sudden that place drops them, you know what I mean? Because they're looking for results in the same thing. And they maybe didn't even believe in that person that much. They just liked what they booked. So they thought, okay, here we can make some money. Nothing wrong with that. That's normal. A lot of reps and people are like that. But in general, it's hard to find people that believe in you in this industry, so keep that in mind. That is really valuable. And then the other thing that the clients that really do well is they're always doing something. I remember there were always clients that were always taking classes, always trying to get better at their craft, getting better headshots, making short films, trying to produce their own things, write their own things. That's an ideal person, because they're hungry and they're doing a lot. They're out there creating. And I've had some of these actors that literally got jobs through that they got a lot of, in that way because of their hustle. And then, I still was involved in that and made money on that. And I'm very grateful for that. That's always great because that's just very much like, oh, like we're both working and we're not keeping score. You know what I mean? We're working towards the same goal. We're not holding it over each other's head. That's really important. It's because, you might be having a serious reg and then you might feel like, oh, now he has to really be grateful and do what I say type of thing. Some people get like that, and I've seen actors get like that. But remember, yes, maybe you are the top earner right now, but shows don't last forever. And then when you don't have a show anymore, maybe all of a sudden you go to a 2-year period, 3-year period where you're not working very much. And essentially then the rep's working for free. So it all balances out, in my opinion. The longer you're with someone, there's always exceptions, you know what I mean? But in general, just remember that and don't be the type of person that keeps score. And 6, the big mistake that I think kind of kills actors, also makes the reps drop actors, is, obviously bad auditions is one, and we can tell when effort's been put in sometimes. Because look, if you've been signed, we know what you're capable of, right? So sometimes you see an actor tape something and they just didn't care too much, or they didn't try on this one. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think sometimes actors get in their head what they think they can get and what they can't get. I think that's a bad idea. I think it's just go for every audition like that's the one you can book, even if the description is completely wrong. Sometimes they change that, another role pops up, you just don't know where it's going to go. It's best for you to just do your best all the time, and we can tell. But make sure you do that because usually we have to pitch or work hard to get that audition, to make sure you're really putting in effort for that. It does matter, and that is the type of thing that reps will drop you for if they see a lack of effort. Same with communication. If you take forever to confirm an audition, like you should be confirming that same day at least, and ideally pretty quickly. Everyone has their email on their phones nowadays, so you should be confirming auditions quickly. We don't want to follow up with you to see if you got this audition, especially in the beginning of your career, unless something's off or it's a weird role or there's something sexual or nudity. In general, you should be trying to do as many auditions as possible, and you can get more, and you can start being more selective. Obviously, the more you start working, that's usually how it goes. But that is important to remember. I think in the beginning, just really communicate and try your best, really. And you think that's easy or that's obvious, but it's not always obvious, and I've experienced that. And the other thing, a huge mistake, is actors that just try to be everything or just don't want to lean into what they are, their type. And I've seen actors that they're like, oh, I want to be the next Denzel Washington, but they're not Denzel Washington, or is anyone. Denzel Washington is Denzel Washington. But I've seen actors that really try to be something that they're not. They want to be Brad Pitt, but they're not Brad Pitt. And you can tell it in the acting because they try to force a way of being that they're not. And even if your reps told you, sometimes that's happened. Like, I would tell you, oh, this type really fits you, you're really good at this, you're really good at this, but maybe they don't feel like that's cool enough or whatever sometimes, or they see something else, and that's not always good. Sometimes it is. You have to really look in the mirror and see who you are, and sometimes you're kind of blind yourself to who you are. You need feedback. That can be from your reps, acting teachers, whoever, but find that out and be blunt about it. Don't just think you're something if you're not. Just get feedback and see where you fit. In the beginning, it is important that you fit into your type, because ideally, every actor can do everything type of thing, but you will be in the beginning kind of typecast in the beginning. There's actors that have built whole careers around that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're a good enough actor, that you will not get stuck there, especially nowadays. So make sure that you know what your type is, that you agree with your reps and talk about that, and so that you really lean into that. Every time I've seen actors succeed and do really well, it's when they really leaned into who they are and their type. They weren't trying to be Denzel or Brad Pitt or something. They were just who they were. And that's unique. That's what people want to see. And lastly, at this point, is not investing in yourself. So I know, look, most actors you don't have a lot of money. You're doing a day job, flexible job. But if you do have something set aside, investing in your headshots, don't have your friend do that. So investing in yourself, in your art. This is, hopefully your priority. Acting classes, whatever. All these things are important. I think it is important to invest in yourself when you can. And I know the economic realities, so it doesn't mean you have to force it or be broke, but it does mean when you can, please do invest. It is important. And 7, I want to say that talk about this point is, like I said, your big break can happen at any time, right? You can be a working actor at any time. I think it's important to always be ready for that. I think it also starts mentally believing that you're that. There's different ways to, some people have that innately. Some people need to learn to get that belief, or need to maybe overcome something in therapy, whatever. You know what I mean? There's different ways to get there, but you do have to have that and believe you are that. I think that does help. And I think another thing, when you do get your break or whatever, make sure you leverage that. It's a hard industry. Things can change really quick. You don't want to just like be like, okay, I'm done working now, I got this, now it's going to be smooth sailing. It's not like that. If anything, once you book your first thing, you really want to use that momentum and use it, work that, you know what I mean? If it's a big role, PR, get on that. You know, it doesn't mean getting the most expensive PR. If anything, sometimes they're not very good. So make sure you get the right PR person for you. That's really important. Build that momentum, use it. Again, it is a business. It's not just about the acting. If you have the role like this, go to all these events that you get invited to. You just meet so many people, which I think long term does help your career. Stay in touch with people, treat people right, obviously, on set, everywhere. And again, builds a long term career because, people that aren't nice to be around don't usually have long careers eventually. So, especially now. So, I think being easy to work with, being a person that's, social, that's positive, goes a really long way to building a long career. Remember that even when you quote unquote make it or start working, keep that same attitude, that same humbleness, because that'll help you a lot. That'll build a long-term career. I mean, think of someone like Keanu Reeves. That guy is known as a super nice guy. Everyone speaks positively about him. He's very giving, very nice to work with, apparently. So look at his career. He's had a humongous long career, and I think that's helped him a lot. It is a real thing, so just make sure you do that. And then, obviously once you're working, make sure that you're signing up for the right projects. Hopefully with your team, you choose the right project. I do believe in general, not always, if you're getting a lot of offers, then you do have to be very picky, because if you take one, you can't do the other. But in general, I do feel like there's not many things that can kill your career. I think saying no a lot can kill your career, but trying to work a lot, even if if you do make something that's not so great, people at this point don't remember very long anymore. It's just the industry has changed a lot. That used to be more of a thing. So don't worry about being too picky. Now, don't take anything, like especially if you are getting multiple offers, and be more picky. It's better to set up your next jobs before your current job finishes. So if you're on a show doing indie films, I definitely recommend. You never know what happens there, but just do as much as you can, because you never know when your hot period is going to be over, or it's going to slow down, and that does happen. It usually moves up and down. There's very few actors that have just had a steady career their whole life. There are some, but it's very rare. So just remember that it goes in peaks and valleys type of thing. If you're peaking, ride that as long as you can, and I think that's really important to remember. So I think remember all these points that I made. I think that's something that I picked up in 10 years doing this, and I think what I wish a lot of actors knew. I think you are in a lot of ways the CEO or the founder of your own startup or of your own company, and I think that is important to remember. The creative side, the art side is obviously super important and is why you do it, but you have to have the other 50%, which is all the other stuff. I think that is important to remember and to do. So I hope this helps. Leave me a comment, like always, what you think, any questions that you have around acting, about career stuff, around talent management. Happy to answer them. And if you haven't signed up for my newsletter on my website on gregbeckers.com, I share a lot of behind the scenes, especially as I'm producing a lot more now. So I share acting lessons as well from people, everything. So remember, sign up for that, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks.